which is due tomorrow. I just want to make sure that we can address these correctly. The idea here, guys, is if this triangle here has an area of 36 degrees, or not 36, 36 centimeters squared. We'll talk about degrees later today. That's just in my mind. So area is 36 centimeters squared. Area for a triangle is 1/2 BH, right? So B and H would be X and Y for this particular triangle, right? Okay. The argument is you actually have an infinite number of X's and Y's that you could put in here to solve and get for 36. Does that make sense? For instance, let's say that X is 72 and Y is 1. When I multiply that out, do I get 36? Yeah, let's say, I could flip-flop them and say, well, X is 1 and Y is 72. I could say that Y is 144. And so what do I have to do? 144, half of 144 would be 72, so X is a half. That would work. Does that make sense? Okay. There's a lot of different combinations of X and Y that you could use to get 36. So I'm getting people to try to answer the question that way. And you can't. There's an infinite number of X's and an infinite number of Y's. We can multiply together to get 36. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Yes. And then take half of it. Okay. So we don't want to do it that way. So then we have to look at this area here. Do we have the ability to find the area of this triangle? Okay. So it's 48 by 54, right? 48 times 54 divided by 2 is 1296. Okay. Well, that is an A squared, and that is a B squared. Does that make sense? They're areas of similar figures. They're telling us these are going to be similar triangles. Okay. If we go 36 compared to 1296. Okay? And I think everybody's worked out this way. And this gives me 1 out of 36. So this isn't the best example of this because the radical kind of disappears. But that is my A squared over B squared. Does that make sense? It reduces to 1 over 36. Well, what's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 36? 6. Okay? Well, if I just square rooted that, it's effectively square rooting A squared over B squared, right? So do we see that A over B now is 1 over 6? That's your scale factor? Is that all right, everybody? So if X compares to 48, it should compare to 48 just like 1 compares to 6. Does that make sense to everybody? Can I then cross multiply and get 6x equals 48? X then is what? 8. Okay. I can do the same thing then with Y. I can say Y compares to 54, just like 1 compares to 6. So I get 6Y equals 54. What's Y going to be? 9. Okay? So you can do it that way. Okay? Now I'm going to do an example that has radicals in it because this one, just the way these numbers worked out with the areas, that radical kind of dissolved here. There will be times where that radical stays. Carly. Yes. 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 All right. So, okay. So this one will kind of leave the radical in it with this one. So this one's saying this area here is 90. This area here is 135 times 60 divided by 2, 4,500. Okay? So that's an A squared over B squared. is equal to 90 over 40/50. Well, if I divide 40/50 by 90, it gives me 45. So this is actually going to reduce to 1 over 45. So a squared over b squared is 1 over 45. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And I think it makes more sense to reduce that first before you try to find a over b. You could find a over b and then reduce. It's just nasty with fractions and radicals if you do that. So now we want to take the square root of that, right? Because that would give me a over b. If I take the square root of that, that is the same thing as taking the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom individually, correct? So I come over here and take the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? 1. And I take the square root of 45. Okay, what perfect square is inside 45? 9. So it gives me 3 radical 5 when I simplify that. Because 45 is radical 9 times radical 5, right? That 9 turns into the 3 and my radical 5. What this tells me then is that this side here is 3 radical 5 times bigger than that side. This side here is 3 radical 5 times bigger than that side. So that's my scale factor, okay? I'm getting too many people to do this. They're saying 90 over 40/50 is equal to x over 60. Which is great that you knew you had to find this area and use that, but you got a squared over b squared compared to an a over b here. You have a 2-dimensional concept compared to a 1-dimensional concept because this is areas and this is a linear distance, right? You can't have that. They got to both be 1-dimensional. So that's why we have to take this out and rewrite it as 1 over 3 radical 5 because now it's 1-dimensional. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I cross multiply. So I get 3 radical 5 times x equals 60. What do I divide both sides by to isolate x? 3 radical 5. So I get something like that. Now, if we look at this, it says rationalize all denominators. That means make all denominators rational numbers. This denominator is an irrational number right now. How do I make that rational? Multiply by radical 5. Over radical 5, right? Excuse me, 60 radical 5. What's 3 times radical 5 times radical 5 going to give me? 15. Now, what's 60 divided by 15? 4. So 4 radical 5 turns out to be the value for x there. You would then go through the exact same algebra to solve for y. You would say 1 over 3 radical 5 is equal to y over 135. Cross multiply, divide by 3 radical 5 to both sides, and rationalize. Okay. There are a lot of videos on my site that target that question. Okay, there's probably 3 or 4 at least. Please take the time to look at those and go over those and make sure you're comfortable with this process. But we're right now, guys, the last 9 weeks, and we got 8 more weeks. We are to the point where we've worked on that radical stuff a lot. Okay, we've multiplied radicals, we've added them, we've subtracted them, we've rationalized. Okay, so that stuff now is just going to be something that we do. I'm not going to go back and reteach it every single time because we've already chewed up a lot of in-class time doing that, right? Chewed up a lot of time in class to reteach Algebra 1. We can't continue to do that every time we see radicals. Okay, so if you don't understand them still, what are you doing about them? Okay, are you just going to say, well, I'm just going to take the L on that one and move on, or am I going to go back and try to fix my misconceptions? Ask questions during Wildcat time, that kind of thing. Because if you do that, then you're going to set yourself up to be pretty successful next year. If you don't do that, you're going to be hurting a little bit next year. Okay. So please take the time to do those things.